Imagine that you're a mosaicist in the city of Dion, Greece in the 3rd century CE, standing with your clients in their dining room before this blank field of flooring. They want a figural mosaic of the god Dionysus and his retinue, framed by a harmonious decorative border. You have a lot of experience doing floors with repeating geometric patterns, but this is your first commission for a mosaic with a pictorial narrative scene. How do you begin? You start the way you always do when designing a patterned mosaic floor. You reach for your most powerful design tool, the compass. This isn't merely an instrument for drawing circles. It's a generative device, a way of dividing space, creating interwoven patterns, defining proportional relationships. You use the compass as instructed by the great mathematician Euclid, a tool for measuring and subdividing. All you need is your compass and a straight edge. No other tools are necessary. With these instruments, you have composed countless floors like this example, a beautiful but simple black and white mosaic in a cubiculum or bedroom at Hadrian's Villa, built in the 120 CE. The underlying pattern consists of arrays of circles laid on top of one another. The largest is the width of the room itself, and the diameter of each subsequent layer is 1/2 the diameter of the one previous. The variety of mosaic patterns that can be developed from the resulting circle grid is endless. But you're now tasked with composing a figural mosaic. The pattern border is the easy part, but perhaps you could use your compass to also guide the figural composition. And so, in this imaginary scenario, the answer to how you begin unfolds not in the figural content, but from the familiar process you use to design the border. Your clients want interlocking, unbroken geometrical shapes small enough to harmonize with, but not compete with, the figural composition. You know from experience that through the process of subdividing with the compass and drawing progressively smaller arrays of circles, the border pattern will emerge as if it's always been there, just like in the Hadrian's Villa example. You begin by finding the center lines of the rectangle, easily accomplished by swinging arcs of equal radius from one corner to the side opposite. Where they cross marks the center. You repeat the exercise to find the other axis line. Now you can draw the first complete circle, with a diameter equal to the width of the rectangle. Then you shift the center point of your compass to the edges of the first, and you draw more circles, each overlapping its neighbor by its radius, producing a two-dimensional array extending from one side to the other. You then reduce the compass by 2 and add another array of circles, 1/2 the diameter of the first. You repeat the exercise. Here, the circles are 1/4 the diameter of the primary layer, but they're still not small enough to create the border that your patron has in mind, so you subdivide yet again. You're now down to 1/8 the primary diameter. For these smaller circles, you make a template to repeat the pattern so you don't have to spin the compass for every circle. Now you've subdivided the field enough times to create a border with repeating shapes that will envelop the central field like links in an unbroken chain. But they're still too big for the border shapes, so you repeat this halving process one more time, 1/16, but you only need to apply them over the 1/8 circles around the edge. And here's the completed pattern. Now you can design the motifs that will make up the elements of the border itself. Your border is now complete, and it's a rather satisfying composition on its own. But you have yet to compose the figural component. You've already got in mind a compositional idea based on mythological tradition. Dionysus will be the central and most dominant figure, riding across the sea in a chariot drawn by leopards. He'll be flanked by satyrs riding in chariots as well. You find yourself staring at that blank space in the middle. But it's no longer truly empty, is it? It's crossed with arcs and circles from the radii used to build the pattern for the border. What if these leftover paths from the border's construction were used to compose the figures? Dionysus, the leopards, and satyrs begin to take form. It's as if they were already there, embedded within the pattern. And here's what you've come up with. Dionysus and his companions are laid out, but not arbitrarily. Gestures and glances all align subtly to this invisible structure. The result is a complete work of art, figural center and decorative border held together by the same harmonic logic. Here's the mosaic with the complete pattern overlaid. Let's look more closely at the circle grid pattern. Unlike common graph paper today, this pattern is not Cartesian. It is based entirely on arrays of overlapping circle grids in a binary recursive progression. It almost looks organic, and contemporary mathematicians might even describe it as fractal. The pattern alone is beautiful because your mind can see and register the harmonics and logic that binds every part to the whole. While ancient and Renaissance artists did use rectilinear grids to scale images long before Descartes gave his name to the coordinate system, this is something else entirely. Note that every circle retains its visual autonomy. You can instantly spot the largest diameters, circles that are a half, a quarter, an eighth, and 1/16 the primary diameter. That clarity invites artists to see and explore potential proportional relationships across the composition. But, unlike the Dionysus border, this is not just about composing with circular or related geometric motifs. Rather, it's the dynamic transitions between diameters, transitions that can guide the eye, shape gestures, and structure forms in a way that appear natural and alive, and yet still participate in the harmonic system. Despite its relative complexity, this system may have felt as familiar to artists then as graph paper is today. But the circle pattern is far more sophisticated. While this pattern offers powerful compositional guidance, it is important to acknowledge that artists and architects, from antiquity to today, have also employed a variety of other geometric systems, including radial symmetry and bespoke Euclidean constructions like Borromini's precisely proportioned ovals. Leonardo himself often explored complex circle patterns in his notebooks that are rosette or mandala-like configurations. Those constructions are similar to many Islamic patterns, particularly in screens, tile work, and other architectural ornamentation that employ tessellated circle arrays in which the center of each new row lands at the crossing points of adjacent circles from the previous row. This method produces beautiful interlocking geometries and can be used to generate intricate polygons and ornamental rosettes. However, it differs significantly from the system presented here. In those tessellated Islamic patterns, circles overlap less distinctly and often become subordinate to the resulting polygonal lattice. In contrast, the clarity and autonomy of each circle in this grid allows for immediate visual detection of simple whole number ratios and modular subdivisions. Let's zoom in closer on the mosaic. The mosaic is made of tiny polished marble stones called tesserae, only 4 to 6 millimeters wide, laid in a style that's called in Latin opus vermiculatum. They follow the directionality and contours of shapes, limbs, and drapery to enhance their naturalistic form and give the illusion of three-dimensionality. The border's motifs explicitly follow the circle grid pattern. The shapes and figures within the center do as well, but less mechanically so. Some fit neatly within certain diameters, such as the chariot wheels, while other parts, arms, legs, and torsos, of Dionysus, the satyrs, and the big cats are more gestural, following smooth blended lines from one arc to another. Even the empty background has a faint directional grain. Watch closely as we slowly transition back to the pattern. The viewer might only register this subtle background grain subconsciously, but that's the point. Here, even nothing participates in the pattern. The background itself becomes part of the harmonics. Let's cycle through the layers, noting compositional correspondences. This is the primary layer, with circles as wide as the mosaic itself. The composition centers on Dionysus, standing tall on the central axis. The center of the whole composition falls on his lower abdomen. The composition builds upward in a mound of figures following the lower center diameter. Note how the flanking circles separate the leopards pulling Dionysus's chariot from the satyrs flanking them. The outward leap of the leopards follows the convex sweep of the flanking circles, and the bodies of the horse-like satyrs fall on lower concave arcs. Look also at the satyrs' human torsos. Their pose, leaning back towards Dionysus, fall close but not precisely on the arcs. It's important to know that these artists used this system as a guide, not a template. To avoid the composition looking too mechanical, they would let some figures hover just off an arc. For example, you can see that the inside contour of the satyr on the left closely responds to the circle, while the satyr on the opposite side is slightly off. In this way, the circle grid suggests order, balance, and proportion, while the figures retain a natural, lively freedom. The second circle grid, 1/2 the primary diameter. The composition splits into 3 overlapping semicircular mounds. One binds the satyr and leopard to the left. The one in the middle centers on the chariot wheel in the foreground and binds the leopards and the chariot, while the half circle on the right binds the leopard and satyr on that side. Here we see the 1/4 layer. The upper central circle neatly contains the torsos of Dionysus along with his companion figure, while the bodies of the satyrs and leopards to either side are bound together by circles of the same diameter. Notice how the hybrid human-horse torso of the satyr on the right tracks the full 180-degree sweep of a circle, while his right arm falls on another arc with precision. The abdomens of both leopards follow arcs very closely, and the front leg of the leopard on the right tracks the same arc to the elbow of the satyr, while the top of Dionysus's chariot echoes a central circle, even if not placed directly on it. Here's the 1/8 layer. The composition breaks down from larger clusters of figures into individual forms. Each leopard and satyr, as well as Dionysus and his companion, are tightly contained within their own circles. Their bodies, the line of their limbs, and even the vessels held by the satyrs fall into place with striking precision. But it's not only the positive figural shapes that respond to the grid. The voids or negative spaces between the satyrs and leopards also echo the circle's sweep, reminding us that the patterns organize both figure and ground. The chariot wheels running across the base of the mosaic fit this diameter perfectly. One 1/16 circles govern the finest elements of the composition. The heads of the figures, Dionysus, his companion, each satyr and leopard, fall precisely within these smaller circles, as do small details such as the curve of the horse's legs at the extreme left and right. And as we've seen, the circular border motifs follow this diameter precisely.